Now, the workplace often rewards extroverted behavior because of the bias towards action rather than contemplation. However, if your personality tends more towards being an introvert, it can be challenging to navigate workplace environments. While activities and people energize extroverts, introverts need time to themselves to reflect and to recharge. Dr. Laura Fisher, career expert and head of institutional advancement at the Boston City campus, joins us now to unpack navigating the world and the workplace as an introvert. Now, Dr. Fisher, before we look at how introverts navigate the workplace, one needs to first understand where you sit on the introversion and extroversion scale. How does one even determine that?
Hi, good afternoon, Kakleko.
Good afternoon, Doc.
So I think that it is a very good starting point to just identify that introversion sits on a continuum, at the opposite end of which is extroversion, and that not everyone fits neatly into either the introversion or the extroversion camp, but most people sit somewhere in between. But in order to understand where you do sit and whether you're more leaning towards introversion or more leaning towards extroversion, I think one of the key ways that you can look at whether you are more bent towards an introverted type of personality style is to look at the things that you prefer to do and what brings you enjoyment. Introverts typically enjoy more peaceful, gentler, quieter, solitary, contemplative environments and experiences. And so I think that if you're wanting to work out where you fit on the spectrum or on the continuum, you can really look at kind of what recharges you and what gives you energy. Is it more the contemplative side of life? Or is it more going out there, being with people, engaging in high stimuli activities? What is life-giving for you?
As an energy. Now, the general idea is that introverts have certain strengths, be it listening or creating relationships, even though they're not at a large scale. So why do introverts find workplaces more challenging than their opposite counterparts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a consequence, really, of what has happened in terms of Western culture transforming from a culture of character to a culture of personality. So, 100, 200 years ago, there was much more interest in the type of character that you had, whereas over the last 100 years, there's been more of an obsession towards a culture of personality in which the extrovert ideal dominates, and introversion is viewed as inferior or sometimes even as somehow not living up to the mark of the extrovert ideal. And I think the workplace has followed along with and very much actually driven this shift from a culture of really esteeming character traits to a culture of esteeming personality traits, because the workplace requires that we show up in a certain way. And there's been an increasing shift towards open plan offices, collaboration, teamwork. So it does make it quite difficult if you are more introspective in terms of the way you process life to really get the maximum out of yourself when you're thrown into an environment where actually you are finding yourself very overstimulated, the environment is noisy, there's often bright lights, there's no differentiation of spaces. And so the place where you feel most alive, which is more in the quieter, more mellow spaces in life, is actually not the workspaces we find ourselves in generally.
Now, Doc, touching on the notion of character versus personality, How does one then leverage in the workspace that, because introverts can be great leaders, it's not only about the energy like you say, but rather that underlying belief in what you do and in what your vision is. But how do you then let that come across as an introvert?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just want to reiterate that I was speaking to someone just before the show, and he asked me how he could do great things being an introvert, because he is very shy. And so the implication there is, well, I'm shy and I'm quiet, and therefore I can't lead and I can't do great things. And that's actually a complete myth, because firstly, introversion and shyness don't necessarily always go hand in hand. But also, many introverts really enjoy and excel in roles that involve leading others, although their leadership style is very different. We've got leaders like Bill Gates, Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, and countless other leaders through history who are classic introverts, who are really character and quality people who show up and whose character and presence almost requires that one is called to follow, because they just have this gravitas about them. So introversion can be a superpower in this context, and introverts shouldn't feel that there isn't a space and a place for introvert leadership styles. And actually, introvert leadership styles are often very profound leadership styles.
So, Doc, are we then saying that the cutthroat corporate world is not designed for introverts, or do you then have to look at a certain career path or course that's best suited for you as an introvert in the corporate space?
I think that I wouldn't agree with your statement that the kind of corporate cutthroat world is not designed for introverts. But I would agree with your notion that the biggest key to career success for any personality type is finding roles that fit your internal needs and finding a way to make your environment work for you. And in broad brushstrokes, introverts are thought to prefer intellectual and aesthetic work, and often prefer positions that lead them to operate fairly autonomously, or companies that allow them to work, at least for periods, in quieter, more contemplative settings. So there are certain careers, and, you know, at Boston, we offer a range of career opportunities in accountancy, bookkeeping, social media, graphic design, marketing. These are all great intellectual or aesthetic career pathways that really are great options for both introverts and extroverts. But introverts are often drawn into these intellectual aesthetic spaces where they can really, dig deep into the introvert superpower of character and introspection and deep listening and deep knowing. The extroverts who function largely, often, as you say, in the cutthroat public domain and move into career spaces like that will not, that's going to work for a certain personality type. But I think it's about deciding what you want and then retrofitting your environment to work to fill what your needs are internally. And so, your biggest success in life is really going to be finding roles that fit your needs, and then really finding ways to show up meaningfully and demonstrate your introvert superpowers or your extrovert superpowers, depending on which side of the continuum you lead more towards.
Doc, thank you so much for your time. That was a very interesting chat. That was Dr. Laura Fisher, who's a career expert at Boston City campus, taking us through what it means being an introvert in the workspace and how you can really maneuver and find a way for yourself in understanding who you are as an introvert and excelling and becoming a leader at it. Now, in a moment, we will tell you all about Miss Bachelorette South Africa. the first pageant in the country dedicated to single, mature, independent women aged between 25 and